Hello and welcome to another episode of Short and Sweet TV. In this episode, we're going to be looking at Photoshop, and we'll be looking at Photoshop's new feature of variable fonts. Variable fonts are not only available in Photoshop, but also Illustrator. They're yet to come to InDesign. So what are variable fonts? Well, they're a new form or a new technology when it comes to typefaces. Essentially, it gives us the ability to now change the width and the weight of our typeface without having to use separate fonts. So traditionally, you might be using Myriad, and you would usually have a thin, maybe a regular, bold, semi-bold, italic, that kind of thing. You can now vary that font. So you would only have one file type or one file, and you can now use some settings in Photoshop to choose from a vast array of weights and thicknesses and italics as well. So it really has, or it's starting to change the way that we customize our typefaces. So the technology was brought about around 2 years ago. It's now starting to be implemented in programs like the Adobe suite. And we'll take a look at it in this video and how you can use it in Photoshop to get a really great variety of fonts. It's only available in a few fonts at the moment, but we should see it start to roll out as the technology develops over more and more fonts. So let's jump in and take a look. Okay, so I've got my new document here with a color overlay on my background layer, and I'm going to jump across and grab the type tool from the toolbar. I'll just add some text on the page. I'll just click onto the page and type some text. And now that I've got that in there, I'll just select that and come up to my window to open up the character panel. Great, so we've got the character panel open, and if we take a look at the character panel, we've got the ability here to change this to all caps, which I'll do from there. And what we can also do is, actually this size is probably about right for what I need. So as we know, we can choose our typeface from the character panel. If I click on my drop down here from the available typefaces on my system, I can scroll across these, and I can also do this from the control panel over here on the top left corner. When you look at Photoshop and some of the fonts that we've got listed here, as I scroll through, it shows me a sample there of the font on my document. But you can also see in here that it actually lists whether that font is a true typeface or whether it's an open typeface. So any font that has a little O next to it is an open typeface. Basically, our variable fonts are only available in open typefaces. So if we come down to Acumen, this font here, you can see there's a VAR sitting next to that little icon for the open typeface. So essentially any font that has that VAR next to it is a variable font. It has that ability to change its width. So if we go up to some of the recently used fonts, I've got a few variables that I've been using recently, and I'll grab Myriad. So I'll select Myriad from there. And if we come across to the properties panel, which has recently been updated in Photoshop 2018, we can see in here at the bottom of the properties panel, there's now this field called weight and width, which will only be available when you are using a variable font. So basically with the weight, if I swing the weight to the left on this font, we can see that I get a narrow or a thin typeface. And then as I drag it across to the right, it will begin to thicken up. So I can take it all the way across to the right-hand side, and I've now got basically a bold or a black typeface. Now, as I'm doing this, if you have a look up here in the control panel, just next to the name of the font where we have our weight there, you can see that it's changing as I'm dragging this along. So and if you actually click on this drop down, you'll see that there's so much more in terms of available weights and italics. Now, just below the weight, I've also got the width. So the width allows me to create a font that is either extended or condensed in its appearance. So traditionally, when you wanted an extended or a condensed look, you would have to find a font that actually had extended or condensed available from the font menu. Whereas in here, with this new variable font, I can actually just drag this width to the left and to the right, and taking it all the way to the left, I end up with more of a condensed look, and if I drag it to the right, I get more of an extended look. So yeah, we're basically able to have a lot more options when we can play around with these variable fonts. And obviously after you've finished playing with the weight and the width, you may need to come in and then adjust some of the kerning between some of the letters and do what you need to do to get the best result, best spacing for all of your letters. But it's a great start, and I think that people will find this new feature very fun to work with. Gives you plenty more options when it comes to your typefaces, and very enjoyable process. So hopefully as the technology develops, we'll see more and more fonts become variable, giving us plenty more options. And one of the benefits of this is that we're only dealing with one file. So it's less management from graphic designers. It's less of a headache to manage multiple files when you're dealing with your fonts, because you've just got that one variable font file that you have to worry about. And as I mentioned earlier, this feature is available in Illustrator as well, and hopefully will be coming to InDesign very soon. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Short and Sweet TV.